I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis 6 years ago after a very long battle trying to get a diagnosis, and was diagnosed with psoriasis actually only about a year ago, kind of around when the pandemic started.
I was diagnosed in 2017, so right before my senior year of college when I was 21. Not that there is ever a good time to be diagnosed with chronic illness, but that felt like a specifically not wonderful time to be diagnosed. But we're here now, and obviously I've, built a business and a brand really around my chronic illness. I feel very grateful. But during the pandemic, living with a chronic illness was such a different ballgame.
At first, it felt like everybody was together. We were all staying home. It felt okay, but I pretty much spent the rest of like 2020 in my home, not being able to really go out too much. The only places I really went were doctor's appointments or blood tests, and it was straight back home. Even going through a drive-through, I was afraid to do because I wasn't sure if anybody else was putting my health in their thoughts. And I'm not someone who physically looks sick, but I'm definitely somebody who is immunocompromised.
So when everything with the pandemic started happening, it was like almost like life didn't really change that much for me. It was definitely, an adjustment, but a lot of what came out of the pandemic, or sort of the things that happened during it, were sort of, I hate to say, but kind of like blessings in disguise for me with a chronic illness, because it really showed the world what it's like to have to be so careful all the time. And I feel like I had friends who were like, wow, is this what it's like to have to be careful with your health all the time? And I was like, yeah, but it's not going to go away after the pandemic. Like, it might for you, but it's not for me. This is going to be a constant thing for me.
I was already at home for 3 months beforehand, so I already kind of knew what it felt like. And I think that's something that a lot of chronic illness patients feel, is that they know what it's like to have to be stuck home against your will anyway.
I really just took that as an opportunity to get to know myself a lot better and give myself like all of the sort of self-love that I could in those moments, and do things like read a lot of books. I'm a big reader and I love reading, and that's like my happy place. So I ordered a lot of books and just kept reading. I started a more consistent meditation practice.
I got really deep into my spirituality. I feel like I had this big spiritual awakening, and I feel like it was because I had no one around to be like, oh, are they gonna like judge me doing all this like spiritual woo woo stuff? It was just me, like in the middle of the woods all the time and sitting by the lake by my apartments, and got really in touch with myself. And I think finally learned the lesson of like having slowness in life is actually such a positive. I used to be such a like go, 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 and that doesn't always mix well with chronic illness. So I think the pandemic finally gave me this like permission slip to rest and slow down. And that helped me uncover so much about myself.
I just want to say, like, with chronic illness and COVID, it's been really frustrating, and I wish others would understand that, and how much precaution you have to take, especially as someone, you don't physically see my illness, so you're not going to automatically assume that I'm sick. I think that's the most frustrating thing, because other people just, they're not thinking about you, they're just thinking about themselves and what they want.
I think a big thing I wish people kind of paused and thought about more was how they're feeling in isolation from the pandemic, is how a lot of chronically ill folks feel all the time, because their chronic illness keeps them isolated. Again, like I was saying, being unable to work, or being unable to go to school, or just, being too sick on bed rest, just not being able to have the energy or health to go out and see friends. So just realizing that like how they're feeling is how a lot of people just feel all the time. I just think it's kind of like a moment to learn kind of that empathy and like feel that understanding a little bit, and have that more eye to eye with, especially if they have peers with chronic illness.
Our health is so fragile, and at any moment in any time, your life can change forever because of chronic illness, or because of just any health issues in general. And for me, and a lot of people with chronic illness, we have diagnoses that we will live with for the rest of our lives. So I hope that people, take away from the pandemic, like respecting each other's like space and boundaries a lot more, and just being a little bit more aware of the fact that, being chronically ill doesn't look a certain way, and that I guess you can just never judge a book by its cover.